Thank you for joining me for episode 6 of the Riff Tacos podcast. My name is Paul Misko, and tonight it's just me. I'm going to start adding a second episode per week as time allows. My goal is to eventually get to 2 episodes per week every single week. Sometimes it'll be just me. Sometimes I'll have a guest on. I might hop on and talk about a random topic, whatever's happening in my life, or just random thoughts. But tonight I want to talk about something that's been happening to me for years, since I was a teenager, sleep paralysis. And it happens to me once or twice per year, almost every single year, and has been one of the most terrifying feelings and experiences I've ever had. If you've had it before, you understand what I'm talking about. And I do have a demon or whatever you want to call it, for lack of a better term, that does visit me every single time. And if you've never had it, it's really hard to describe. It's one of the scariest things that you can ever go through. The definition I looked up is: sleep paralysis is a temporary inability to move or speak while transitioning between sleep and wakefulness, caused by the body remaining in REM, atonia, if I pronounce that correctly, natural muscle paralysis during REM sleep. The sensation of seeing or feeling a demon arises from vivid hallucinations, heightened fear due to amygdala activation, and physical sensations like chest pressure. These experiences are influenced by the brain's dream state and cultural or psychological interpretations. So that's all fine and good, but if you're going through it, it is the most real thing ever. You are lucid, you're awake, your eyes are open, you're seeing reality, but you cannot move and you are frozen in place. And for some people, that's all they have. And then for people like me, you get a visitor of sorts, where there's a presence in the room, or at least it feels like it. You can feel it next to you, touch you, literal physical contact. And sometimes it'll come up and lean into my ear, and it seethes, and it's almost like a static hissing, and I can feel it next to me, like the alien in Alien, the xenomorph up against Sigourney Weaver's face. It's literally the most terrifying feeling. And it's fear in a physical form. You can feel fear throughout your body. It's completely different than your usual mental state of fear or something that scares the shit out of you. It's a complete utter terror. And so the first time this happened to me, I was a teenager, still living at my mom's house. Had a bedroom upstairs. Her bedroom was next to mine. I went to sleep on a futon that was in my room, and I had my laptop sitting on my desk across from me. And it was the old white MacBooks that when you put it to sleep, there would be a little light that blinks. I don't know if they still do that, but it would slowly blink, almost like it's snoring and snoozing. And that was kind of the only light in the room, and it would illuminate a little bit and go back down. And I woke up middle of the night, first time this ever happened. I could see the computer, and when I tried to move, my body was completely frozen. All I could do was move my eyes around. I couldn't move my head, nothing. And that alone is terrifying. But as soon as I realized I couldn't move, I saw this shadow walk in front of the computer and block that light. And it was so real that I thought my mom was in the room, but I couldn't move. And so I had to start fighting and fighting and fighting. And if you've had sleep paralysis before, eventually you fight and fight and fight and you break free of it. So I sit up, I freak out, I turn the light on, and then see that she wasn't there. I literally said her name, Mom, are you in here? And there was nobody there. So I went into her room, woke her up, and I was like, were you just in my room? Almost angry. What were you doing in there? You scared the shit out of me. And she's like, no, what are you talking about? Are you crazy? So I go back in there and I'm just like, what the fuck? I was sure someone was there, but I had never heard of sleep paralysis. I didn't understand that was a thing. And I was like, well, someone's in the house, maybe it was a burglar or someone broke in and they were sneaking around, because I literally saw a solid figure walk in front of the computer, block the light, and then go towards the window in my bedroom, which was opposite of the door. So I look around the house and no one's there. Okay. and I'm trying to say, maybe it was just a dream. Maybe I was half asleep still, whatever. And then I just kind of wrote it off and kind of forgot about it eventually. But a few years later, I'm in college and it happened again. It happened in the middle of the day. I had a futon again in college in my room. I locked the door, and just because, your friends would fuck with you, whatever. I lived in a house full of like 4 or 5 people. So it's like two in the afternoon. I laid down to take a nap. I was probably hungover or something. Who knows? But I fall asleep for, I don't know, an hour or so. Wake up, same thing. I'm completely frozen. And I'm looking around the room and the door is still shut. I can see that. But I feel what feels like if you have pets, when you're laying on a couch or a bed and you feel like a dog or cat jump up next to you and kind of cuddle up behind your legs or your back. So my back was up against the futon. It was folded up like a couch. And I felt something I couldn't see jump up and then squeeze in between me and the futon like an animal. And at first, when I'm still like kind of out of it, I'm like, oh, that's the dog or whatever, someone's pet. I'm like, wait, there's no one fucking here. And the door is closed. So what the hell is that? So I immediately freak out. Like, what is that? Can't move. Maybe a minute goes by. It's hard to like tell how much time passes when you're in that state. But then boom, I break free of it. There's nothing there. The door was shut. No one ever came in. It was still locked, but you're positive you feel something. And so like they kept increasing like this. Like first I just saw it. This time I felt it. And then I know there's a number of them that I can't remember. And the whole reason I'm talking about this is it happened to me again the other night. But there's another story in between these years that really freaks me out to this day. And Gladdy, my girlfriend, is part of it. And we didn't even like talking about it for a while. And I actually forgot. I think she brought it up again maybe last year, and I had forgot about it because I probably wanted to push it out of my head. But we lived together in Los Angeles. We had an apartment in Hollywood, and it was in this like high-rise apartment building, like old school Hollywood style. And we had this apartment where our bedroom was on the end of it and a balcony that went across the whole way. And I remember, I think we'd gone out the night before. We go to sleep, slept in, wake up. It was pretty late out, probably like 10 in the morning, 11 or something like that. But I wake up literally mid conversation with her, and I'm sitting like this in bed looking at her, but I was asleep, and I wake up talking to her mid sentence, and so was she. So we both are like, we kind of finished what we were saying. I don't even remember what I was saying. And then we both freak out and we're like, wait, do you remember? Like, were we just sleeping? How are we having a conversation? And we're trying to figure out like what the hell is going on. But because it happened to both of us at the same time, we were having a conversation together in our sleep. And I was posed like this, leaning next to her, talking to her. And it freaked me the hell out. It was like almost like something else was using us as a vessel to communicate. And if it had just been me or something, I would have been like, whatever, I'm talking in my sleep. But both of us were doing it together at the same time. And, maybe there's a thing where couples or people who, sleep in the same bed, they sleep talk together. I've never heard of that. But the feeling of whatever the hell that was creeped me out. I don't know if it has anything to do with this or sleep paralysis, because I wasn't frozen. I just woke up mid-sentence, and so did she. Like, we were having a conversation in our sleep. It was so freaky. And then we go down the rabbit hole of, it was aliens using us to speak to each other, or, ghosts, or, demons, whatever. I don't know how scary that sounds to you, but it really, really like shook us up and freaked us out, especially because like, when you start talking about aliens and shit, aliens to me are the scariest thing because they have to be real. Like ghosts, all that other shit, whatever, I don't really believe in necessarily, but aliens abducting people and doing things like that has always scared the crap out of me, especially the movie Fire in the Sky when I was a kid, like traumatized me. And The Fourth Kind, which was terrifying as well, if you've never seen that. It was kind of like back when found footage shit was still hot, and then they they had fake found footage they told you was real, and they would put it next to cinematic footage where they're like reenacting the scene. But if you saw it then, you might have thought it was real. I don't remember if I knew when I watched it or not, but the movie itself is terrifying. It's kind of like The Exorcist meets Aliens, but it's all like based in like what could be true. So that scared the hell out of me. The aliens have always scared the hell out of me. But then I've always looked up this stuff over the years. I've looked it up a million times where they're like, oh, you're in REM sleep, your brain is awake, but your body's still asleep, and that's why you can't move. And I'm like, okay, that makes sense. But how do you explain the lucid feeling of something touching you? And multiple times it happened when I was living in Austin too. I remember I fell asleep upstairs watching TV or after I played games or something, so I didn't wake Gladdy up. And the same thing, I felt it touch me. I could see a dark figure like over my shoulder, and this was one of the times where it leaned in and it was seething in my ear, and it's like this breath that is like this electricity, it's static, and when it does that, it's like this pulse that goes through my entire body, and it's just fear in a physical form. I can't describe it any other way. But one time that happened there was the most I'd ever been scared of it, and it was, I don't know, like it's so hard to explain if it's never happened to you. And after that experience, it would happen again, and it wasn't as intense, but I would always still feel something. I could see a figure in the room, would always be paralyzed for a little bit. Then you fight and you fight and fight. So I got used to it happening because it was so frequent, like twice a year or something, that I stopped panicking as much. It's still scary as shit, but I wouldn't let it bother me as much. And I was like, I'll just fight through this because I don't know if it's real. Demons aren't real, whatever. But in the moment, it feels like it is. But I was able to control myself better during it. And then the other night, this is what sparked this whole thing. I did the podcast with Billy from Nights Like These, went to sleep that night, and the demon visited me that night, whatever it is. So I was having a lucid dream, and I was going down this hallway that was like almost, it was very reflective and colorful. Like, I don't know what you would call that, like a sticker that's reflective, almost like rainbow looking. That's what the walls looked like, but they were soft and like almost like marshmallowy or bubbly or something. But I'm walking down that, and then I realize I'm in a dream. And for some reason, because I'm a dork and I was obsessed with telekinesis when I was a kid, the first thing I do when I think I'm in a dream is I go, can I move something with my hand? And I did this, and then some weird little thing just came up and floated in my hand. I was like, oh, I'm dreaming. Try to have fun with this. So it didn't really work. So, sometimes if you're lucid dreaming, if that's happened to you, you can control it, and it's like fun for a little bit. Or once you realize that, you start to wake up. And so I go down the hallway a little bit, could feel myself kind of starting to wake up. And then there was a hole in the wall, and I jumped through it, put my legs through first, and came through. And there was like a woman there or something. And I can't remember what she said to me, but something felt off about her. Like I was supposed to follow her, but I didn't trust her. And then I went a little bit further, maybe following her somewhere. And then boom, I wake up. And then standard thing, I'm completely frozen, and I'm facing the wall. The thing is there, like always, behind me, where it's like it's staying where you can't see it. Oh, no, wait, I'm forgetting something. So I wake up first thinking I'm awake for real, and I'm not. I was in my apartment in Austin, Texas, but because at first it was so familiar, I was like, like I came out of that dream. And then I go, holy shit, I don't live in Austin. I live in Ohio now. Why the fuck am I here? But it was so real that I was in that room. And then boom, I realize I'm in a dream again. And then I wake up again here. And then the paralysis starts. And my eyes are wide open. I can see the thing. It's like tall, skinny, black, but it always kind of stays barely out of your sight. And I know they say it's a hallucination, but I swear to God, it's the most real thing. And it's like, I understand your body's frozen, you're half asleep, whatever, but why is there this terrifying thing always there, and it's always the same? Like, why is that the hallucination if that's what it is? So I'm fighting like usual. And like, I get like one arm out, and then like, I'll start screaming like, fuck you, or at least that's in my head. And I get pissed off because like I'm not as scared of it. I'm not as afraid of it as I used to be. And I'll get pissed. And then boom, I break out of it. The thing's gone. And for whatever reason, this one shook me up a little bit and it stuck with me for a day or two. And so that's why I've been thinking about on my second podcast of a week, I'd kind of like to talk about this. And it stuck with me for the next morning. And usually I forget about it in a day or so, but it kind of like made me feel off for a day or two. And then I was texting Billy telling him, oh, I got the episode edited and here's the artwork and whatever. We were going back and forth. And for whatever reason, I told him, I was like, my sleep paralysis demon visited me last night. And then like right away, he like perked up and was interested in it. So he started asking me a bunch of questions. And so I was telling him, you know, the history of it, everything I just described, how it happens like once or twice a year and how extremely real it is to me and how terrifying it's been. And then I'm going down to like what I think it is. I'm like, is it aliens? Is it like demons? I don't know. Like the alien thing is always kind of stuck with me because I'm like, what if they show up in the middle of the night and they're doing experiments like they would if they abduct someone? But it's much easier to do it in bed. So then as I'm explaining this to him, I start coming up with another idea on the spot. I'm like, what if they need you to stay asleep to do whatever they're doing, some kind of brain scan or test or whatever. And then if you start to wake up, they force you into another dream, sort of like the Matrix or something like that. So you wake up, and that's why I woke up in Austin and they're like trying to keep me asleep. And then eventually they can't keep you asleep because your brain keeps going through the levels, kind of like Inception 2 or whatever. I know this sounds crazy, but so then you finally wake up. They can't continue to do what they're doing. They keep you frozen for a minute, and then poof, they're gone. And then everything is like, well, what the hell was that? So after that happened, I start telling him about it, start going down the rabbit hole and all these theories and stuff. And then I start researching the scientific explanation again, which I've done before, but it felt like there was nothing ever that conclusive. They're like, the theory is that you're half asleep and then it's hallucination. But I'm like, is that 100% proven? So then I looked up and it says the scientific explanation for sleep paralysis and related phenomena is widely supported, but not entirely proven in the sense of explaining why every individual experience with absolute, in the sense of explaining every individual experience with absolute certainty. Sleep paralysis itself and its psychological basis, such as rematonia, are well documented and understood. However, the exact mechanisms behind the vivid hallucinations and emotional experience, like seeing or feeling a demon, are based on strong correlations and theories grounded in neuroscience and psychology, not definitive proof in all cases. So I'm like, yeah, see, you motherfuckers don't know. Like, and if you've had this and you understand what I'm talking about, you get it. If you don't, this all sounds completely insane, but I swear to God, it is the most real thing when you're going through it. You can see the figure, you can feel them touch you. You are wide awake and there's no break of like, you close your eyes and then you're back. Like, no, you are awake and you cannot move. And there's something in the room with you. It is awful. So then it continues. This is what, when I was talking with Billy, so he's all into neuroscience and stuff. He did spinal surgery and, worked on that kind of thing. And he's like, oh, maybe I could ask, I forget who he said it was, but this woman that he works with, who's like an expert, get her thoughts on it. And he was like, you have a very creative brain, very visual brain. Maybe part of that is why you experience it more than other people, just like throwing that out there. And I was like, I never thought about that. So then I looked up, is there a correlation between people with more creative brains or certain type of brains and having sleep paralysis? So here's what they say about that. Yes, studies suggest there may be a correlation between creativity and a higher likelihood of experiencing sleep paralysis. Creative individuals often have more active imaginations and may process sensory information in unique ways, which can contribute to vivid, hypnagogic, forgive me for saying that wrong, that means falling asleep, or hypnopompic, waking up, hallucinations during sleep paralysis. Additionally, factors that are more common in creative people, such as irregular sleep patterns, heightened emotional sensitivity, and a tendency toward fantasy-prone thinking, might increase the chances of experiencing sleep paralysis. So I'm like, okay, that makes sense. I'm a dork. I'm a creative-minded person. Fantasy-prone thinking. Yes, my favorite movies like Lord of the Rings. But yeah, then it goes into vivid imagery, dream recall, cognitive flexibility, sleep disruption. So I was like, I think he's right. And now so I'm like, I'm really intrigued by this and I'd like to learn more about it. So if anyone listening has this happen to them, I would love to hear from you, and leave a comment, shoot me a message on Instagram or something. Uh, I just think it's so interesting, and since it's something that's happened to me my entire life. I've always like, you kind of get over it and forget about it because you can't really figure out an explanation or a way to stop it. So it just becomes, part of what happens occasionally. But I still like, I'll get reinterested in it and I'll start looking shit up like this. But yeah, that most recent one, just like it shook me up for a few days and it got me like looking up all this stuff again. Um, but also, if anyone's ever been to like a sleep doctor or an expert that helps them with this kind of stuff, or, terrible sleep patterns, which I definitely have. I almost every single night wake up at like 3 or 4 in the morning. And then sometimes I can fall back asleep, but about half the time I'm up then till like 7 or 8 in the morning. Then I fall back asleep and then I'll sleep till 10, and it's just the absolute worst. But yeah, I thought this would be cool to talk about, and I would like to get Billy back on here to discuss it some more. If he has any insight from his line of work and that woman he was talking about that could maybe shed some light on why it happens. And another thing, if you've ever looked up the imagery of sleep paralysis and sleep paralysis demons, I mean, this shit goes back so far. There's so many creepy old paintings and pictures you can find online. I'll throw some up in the video. And they all are similar. They're tall, thin, black creatures. Some of them have glowing eyes. I can't say specifically that I've ever seen glowing eyes. I'm seeing one with like red glowing eyes. I may have seen that once, but I may be projecting now. I know the thing I always see is tall and black and thin. And when it does that seething thing in my ear, it is like, aside from the pure terror I already described, it just feels like whatever it is the most evil thing, like evil incarnated. And that's assuming if people have that same experience, why they're called demons. Because if it was just just nothing, an hallucination, why is it always that? Or if it's an alien, then we're fucked because they're not here to do good things. But I got to put this picture up here. This is terrifying. That looks like some AI shit. But I got to say again, watch The Fourth Kind if you haven't seen it. Go watch Fire in the Sky if you haven't seen it. And then think about when you're going to bed at night, if something like this happened to you, that you couldn't think about that. And it's like something similar to an abduction, but that they do on site, which is just horrifying to me. Another thing Billy said, he was like, oh, I wish you had a camera in your room so I could, we could see what happened. And the thing is, I have security cameras. And as soon as he said that, it sent chills down my spine because I did not want to see it. I'm like, what would I see on there? And I also realized later that they're just live cameras that I can, I get a notification if there's a, movement or something. So I can like look in on it when I'm not home, but it doesn't record. So I didn't have it anyway. But the fact that it was there, the thought of watching it happen and watching myself like frozen, like that, I don't want to see it. And then you also couldn't, like, if I went to like a sleep doctor or something that tried to figure it out, like it would never happen while you're there doing like a sleep study or something like that, of course. Cause it's just random. And it just feels like something that's only going to happen when you're by yourself, of course. But if there's anyone out there who has experiences with this stuff, or is an expert on anything, I'd love to have you on to talk about it. It's something that's been with me forever. I don't know what to do about it. I kind of don't want it to stop either, even though that's weird to say, because it's like, if it is something other than just a hallucination, it's like a connection to like something else, which is kind of exciting because I've always been into that stuff, into the paranormal, and way more into it when I was younger. I was the kid in the library, always going for the like ghost books and Bigfoot books and stuff like that instead of Sports Illustrated or whatever kids read then. So I've always been into it. I've always been obsessed with it. So if you're like, oh, this is my proof that there's some kind of connection to what another dimension, aliens, whatever, I don't know. It's just kind of neat. And it's like, I wouldn't want that to go away unless something bad is happening. But I think I'll wrap that up there. I don't have a ton else to say on it, and I don't want to sit here and blab about it. I do want to do more of these by myself and just talking about random things. I enjoy it. It helps me clear my head and, just get some interesting topics out there other than just all the, music stories and stuff. If you're enjoying the show so far, as always, please consider subscribing on YouTube or following on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Leave me a rating, hit me with a comment, question, anything. I'd love to talk to you. And thank you very much. And I'll see you on the next one with Mr. Shane Cashman. He's a writer, fellow musician, and I think he was a staff writer for Timcast News, which I used to watch that podcast a lot. I got out of the political stuff because I got sick of it, but he's also a regular on Timcast IRL and just a cool dude. We've been chatting on Instagram for the last year or so on and off and reminiscing about the old metal scene in the 2000s. And who knows, we may have crossed paths at one point when he was in his old band. So excited to talk to him and get to know him. It'll be my first time talking with someone that I don't know in real life. So thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time.